And despite all of this, Kamala Harris said she wouldn't do anything. She's not going to do anything differently. So if you had your chance, would you do something differently? No, I'd keep it just the same. Think of the things I read, and that's a small portion of the incompetence. What they've done to our country is unthinkable. This November, the people of Pennsylvania have to tell Kamala Harris that we've had enough of you. You're an incompetent person. You're the worst vice president in the history of our country, acknowledged to be. Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. You're fired. Get the hell out of here.
Some harsh words there from Donald Trump, who took a liking to his old catchphrase from The Apprentice, telling Kamala Harris, "You're fired." The former president and Republican candidate for the presidential election was campaigning in Scranton, Pennsylvania, when he told the crowd that he thinks that voters will have to tell the Veep that she is incompetent and that they've had enough of her. Never not entertaining these campaign rallies from Donald Trump. Welcome to Mad World, our weekly Culture Wars wrap-up. Let's get into it. Kamala Harris has been copping a bit of criticism for failing to hold a proper press conference in the 81 days since becoming the nominee for the Democratic Party. Even MSNBC anchor Andrea Mitchell said that Kamala Harris needs to be doing more interviews to gain those votes from undecided men.
I think they've got to double down on doing more interviews and serious interviews, because what I'm hearing from Democratic and Republican business people and a lot of men, and she's got such a big problem with men. I think there's an undercount of the Trump vote. I think there is misogynation in all of this, black and white men. Big problem, but also the business world. They don't think she is serious. They don't think she's a heavyweight. And a lot of this is gender, but she's got to be more specific about her economic plan.
But when VP Harris does decide to do interviews, they are critiqued and pulled apart. So this week was no different when Kamala Harris sat for an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes program, and an editing change made people question a few things. In the promotional video, Harris was asked about financial support being sent from the US to Israel.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But when the interview actually aired, the answer from Kamala Harris was different to the promotion.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
This prompted critics online and the Trump campaign team to call for CBS to release the entire 60 Minutes interview. Trump's statement read, "I've never seen this before, but the producers of 60 Minutes sliced and diced, cut and pasted lying Kamala's answers to questions which were virtually incoherent over and over again, some by as many as 4 times in a single sentence or thought, all in an effort, possibly illegal, as part of the news division, which must be licensed to make her look more presidential or at least better." Now, in a bizarre report this week, CNN and the Washington Post have claimed that a Watergate reporter was about to drop a book which has claimed that Donald Trump sent COVID testing kits to Vladimir Putin in Russia during the pandemic. This was allegedly in 2020, when COVID testing kits were scarce and access to them worldwide was becoming politicized. In the book, Putin is quoted to tell Trump, "I don't want you to tell anybody because people will get mad at you. Not me. They don't care about me." Trump reportedly responded, "I don't care. Fine." Kamala Harris was asked about this and the relationship between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in an interview with Howard Stern.
I believe that Donald Trump has this desire to be a dictator. He admires strong men, and he gets played by them because he thinks that they're his friends.
Yeah.
And they are manipulating him full time manipulating him by flattery
Yeah.
and with favor.
There seems to be some sort of disagreement in the Biden administration over how Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is handling hurricane recovery and preparation in his state. Hurricane Milton has made landfall in Florida only a week or so after Hurricane Helene caused widespread damage, destruction and deaths. The crossed wires on how DeSantis is handling the crisis started when VP Harris was asked about whether the governor is ignoring her calls.
President, Governor DeSantis, NBC is reporting Governor DeSantis is ignoring your calls on hurricanes, resources and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
You know, moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
Governor DeSantis was then asked about this.
The fact of the matter is she has no role in this process. She's not part of the chain of command. I am working with President Biden and FEMA and our state and local partners, and we're getting the job done. She has never been interested in any of the storms we've had in the state of Florida for her entire time as vice president. Now she's out there attacking me because I'm not catering to her whims. All she's trying to do is inject herself to be a part of her political campaign. I don't have time for political games. We've got a job to do. We got people's lives on the line, and that is our sole focus.
But according to DeSantis, why is it only now that the VP cares about hurricanes hitting his state? Could it be that an election is looming?
Now, he said this morning, you've never called regarding any of the storms Florida has had since you've been vice president until apparently now, and called it political. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, I have called and talked with, in the course of this crisis, this most recent crisis, Democrat and Republican governors. Called, taken the call, answered the call, had a conversation. So obviously, this is not an issue that is about partisanship or politics for certain leaders, but maybe is for others.
Mm-hmm. But then it came to Joe Biden's turn, and it looks like the president has the state leaders back.
Mr. President, does Governor DeSantis need to take Vice President Harris's calls?
All I can tell you is I'm talking to Governor DeSantis. He's been very gracious. He's thanked me for all we've done. He knows what we're doing, and I think that's important.
Despite backlash for Kamala Harris doing less interviews than some say she should, the VP has been busy on talk shows like Stephen Colbert and podcast Call Her Daddy. But it was this clip of the VP that went viral, with many labelling her cringe when she cracked open a beer on TV.
This was, now we asked ahead of time because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life. You asked for Miller High Life. I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
So cheers. There
cheers.
You go. There you go.
This response from Kamala Harris also had people cringing online, some telling the Democratic nominee to say something of substance.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of...
Melania Trump was in the spotlight this week, appearing on Fox News, where she labelled certain rhetoric against her husband as toxic.
I think, you know, when they call him he's a threat to democracy, let's ask ourselves, who is really a threat to democracy? They are ongoing with lawfare against the former president, as well as, you know, trying to get him off the voting ballots and trying to, you know, silence him. So, yes, of course, I was always afraid what can happen, and that they continuing with that kind of language is just, it's a toxic atmosphere.
Now, as Hurricane Milton is set to cause absolute devastation to the people of Florida, relief funding has been a big topic of mind for Americans, as the destruction caused by Hurricane Helene will already cost millions of dollars and take years to rebuild. So Fox News reporter Peter Doocy went toe-to-toe with White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre over why the US is sending so much money to Lebanon when Americans affected by the storms need assistance now.
President Biden is fond of saying, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now, without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? There's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it. That's not misinformation.
Wait, no, that is your whole premise of the question is misinformation, sir. What you do? Yes, it's misinformation.
Is there money to send to Lebanon right now?
I just mentioned to you that we provided more than $200 million to folks who are impacted in the area, and I just shared with you that people are deciding not to. People are deciding not to.
Letter to Congress that there's not enough money to help people in North
Carolina. We're talking about the SBA disaster loan.
That's money for people in North Carolina,
and that's important. And people in North Carolina need that. Wait, this is nothing new. Peter, this is nothing new.
Peter Doocy then went back online, schooling the press secretary over what is and what is not misinformation.
Peter Doocy here, outside the West Wing of the White House, where this week, one of my questions about foreign aid versus hurricane relief was called misinformation. President Biden is fond of saying, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now, without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? There's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it. That's not misinformation.
Wait, no, that is your whole premise of the question is misinformation, sir. What you do? Yes, it's misinformation.
I've got the information right here. The vice president is posting on social media about $157 million in additional assistance to the people of Lebanon. President Biden is posting about how the Small Business Administration's disaster loan program is going to run out of funding if Congress does not come back. To a lot of people watching these briefings, a taxpayer dollar is a taxpayer dollar is a taxpayer dollar. That is not misinformation. That is a fact.